you finally reach the point where you act like she doesn't exist, something profound begins to shift. Not in her, but in you. It's not about pretending or forcing silence. It's not about withholding messages or ignoring calls just to get a reaction. It's deeper than that. It's the moment when you no longer have to remind yourself not to care, because the care has already left you. That is the true power of disappearance. It isn't built on bitterness or revenge. It's born from clarity. When you erase her name from your thoughts, when you stop replaying the memories, when even the idea of her no longer stirs emotion, you cross into a level of peace that most people never reach. Most men try to ignore her to make her chase, believing distance will somehow create desire. But that's not mastery, that's manipulation, and the feminine energy feels it. When your silence hides hope, she can still sense the waiting underneath. When your indifference is filled with resentment, she still feels your emotional attachment. What separates the Stoic man from the ordinary one is intention. His silence isn't a strategy, it's a state of being. He's not trying to win her back. He's trying to win himself back. When a Stoic man withdraws, he does it with discipline. Not to punish her, not to play games, but to purify himself from the emotional dependence that once ruled him. He understands that peace cannot coexist with obsession, so he begins the process of release. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, gradual. Each day he takes a little more of his power back, his focus, his attention, his presence. He stops feeding the connection that drained him. The result isn't just silence. It's absence, the kind of absence that cannot be faked because it radiates calm. And that calm terrifies her. There's a stillness in a man who is truly detached. He no longer looks for closure. He no longer replays what-ifs. He no longer explains his peace. He simply embodies it. Marcus Aurelius said, "Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed." That's not philosophy, it's freedom. The moment you decide that nothing she does has the power to disturb your equilibrium, you become untouchable. She might still talk, post, or try to provoke, but you've transcended that cycle. You've moved beyond reaction. In that silence, everything reverses. The power she once held dissolves. The emotional grip she had weakens, not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding it. She starts to feel the weight of your absence, not through your words, but through your energy. She realizes the reflection she once admired in your admiration has vanished. The mirror is gone, and with it, the illusion of her control. That's when the calm becomes your greatest weapon, not a weapon to harm, but to heal. Because when you no longer give her the power to affect your emotions, you reclaim your entire being. You stop existing in reaction to her and start existing in alignment with yourself. Your silence becomes sacred. It's not emptiness, it's evolution. Every ego feeds on reflection, and for a long time, you were her mirror. You showed her who she wanted to believe she was. Through your eyes, she saw beauty, worth, and significance. Every compliment you gave her painted the image she carried of herself. Every time you chased her, it confirmed her importance. Every emotional reaction you had, whether pain, anger, or longing, was proof that she still held power over you. That's how her ego thrived, not on her own sense of value, but through the validation she siphoned from your energy. You became the mirror that kept her image alive. But when you stopped, when you pulled your energy back completely, that reflection disappeared. It's not that she stopped being beautiful or interesting. It's that the image she saw of herself no longer had your attention to sustain it. The mirror shattered, and when the mirror breaks, the ego begins to panic. It can't recognize itself without external confirmation. She starts to feel the silence as rejection, but it's more than that. It's exposure. Your absence exposes what her ego tried to hide. That her confidence was never built on substance. It was built on your reaction. She'll pretend not to notice at first. She'll act unbothered, maybe even happier, projecting an image of strength. She'll post more, laugh louder, appear busy and fulfilled. But if you look beneath the surface, it's not confidence, it's survival. She's trying to fill the void your validation used to occupy. The louder she appears, the more fragile she actually feels. Because deep down, she senses the difference between attention freely given and attention forced out of insecurity. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it that matters." In this silence, her interpretation starts to twist inward. She's not thinking about you with affection. She's thinking about herself with uncertainty. Your absence becomes a mirror she can't escape, one that doesn't flatter her, one that doesn't reflect perfection. For the first time, she sees herself without the glow of your admiration, and it unsettles her. She starts to question if she was ever as special as she thought. She begins to wonder if the control she believed she had was ever real. This is the psychological unraveling of the ego. It's not pain that breaks it, it's irrelevance. She doesn't miss you because she loves you. She misses what she felt through you. She misses the reflection of power, beauty, and desirability that your energy provided. Without that reflection, she begins to feel invisible. And invisibility to the ego is death. What she doesn't realize is that your silence has become a mirror sharper than any words. It doesn't insult or argue, it simply reflects truth. You didn't withdraw to punish, you withdrew to purify. You didn't remove her to hurt her. You removed her to see yourself clearly again. In doing so, you forced her to confront herself without the illusion your attention once created. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. And that clarity is what ultimately destroys her ego, because for the first time she's left alone with her own reflection, and it no longer feels enough. Every connection is built on an exchange of energy. For as long as she had your attention, she had access to your power. Every time you reacted, she absorbed it. Every text you sent, every moment you waited for her reply, every ounce of emotional effort you gave, it all fed her sense of importance. Attention is the most valuable currency in existence, and you were spending it freely on someone who treated it like it had no worth. She never realized that your energy was what gave her power, not her charm, not her beauty, not her control. When you finally took that energy back, the entire foundation of her ego started to collapse. You see, the ego can't survive without significance. It needs to feel seen, wanted, admired, envied. That's how it breathes. And when you stopped giving her that validation, she began to suffocate without even realizing why. Her confidence started to feel hollow. The excitement she used to get from your attention faded. The validation high that once kept her ego inflated began to wear off, leaving behind only emptiness. She may not show it, but she feels it. Every moment of silence becomes a reminder that the source of her power is gone. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When she loses access to your energy, her thoughts start turning darker, heavier, quieter. She begins to overanalyze, wondering why you're not reacting, why your silence feels different this time. It's not the kind of silence that begs for attention. It's the kind that exudes control. That realization makes her restless. She'll try to provoke you again, maybe with subtle posts, indirect messages, or attempts to spark curiosity. But the Stoic man doesn't respond. He's not withholding for effect. He's simply unmoved. When you stop reacting, you reclaim your power. The same energy that once built her confidence now rebuilds your peace. She used to dictate your emotional rhythm. You'd rise and fall based on her attention. Now the rhythm belongs to you. Your focus shifts inward. You begin investing that energy in your goals, your discipline, your growth. That reallocation is what truly ends her control. Because your silence isn't empty, it's redirected. What once fed her ego now feeds your evolution. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's the shift. You no longer react. You respond with stillness, and that stillness becomes strength. You start to see that peace is the highest form of power. She can no longer reach you through guilt, temptation, or provocation. Her tricks stop working because you've stepped outside the game. She tries to regain control, but control only works on those who seek it. You've stopped seeking. Your detachment isn't cold, it's clear. You've realized that control isn't about dominance. It's about discipline. You don't need to win her back or make her regret. You've already won the moment you stopped giving her what she never earned. your energy. You've turned silence into sovereignty, attention into authority, and emotion into equilibrium. That's when she finally feels what you once felt, the loss of power. When your energy finally goes dark, when the presence that once surrounded her suddenly vanishes, something in her world begins to unravel. She doesn't understand it at first. It feels like a small silence, a temporary pause, something that will eventually fade. But the silence grows heavier with time. The attention she once commanded so effortlessly stops arriving. The validation she used to take for granted disappears. The control she once held begins to slip quietly through her fingers. For the first time, she realizes that her reflection no longer exists in your eyes. The mirror that once made her feel important has shattered completely, and with it, her illusion of power. She still tries to act unbothered. She posts, she smiles, she performs. She puts on the same mask she's always worn, the one that says, "I don't need him." But deep down, she feels the void. Because what she truly misses isn't you. It's the feeling she had when your attention surrounded her. She misses being desired, admired, and significant. And that emptiness begins to grow. She can sense that your energy has changed, that it's no longer directed toward her. That's what breaks her. Your silence doesn't scream, it radiates. It carries a stillness that can't be faked. You've become the calm she can't shake, the quiet she can't understand. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be like the rock against which the waves break." That's who you are now, the immovable rock, steady and unshaken, while her emotions crash and fade around you. Your detachment, once mistaken for weakness, now reveals itself as strength. She starts to question what happened. Why doesn't he care? Why doesn't he respond? Why doesn't he react? These questions echo in her mind until they turn into self-doubt. She begins to wonder if she ever really mattered, or if the power she thought she had was just an illusion built from your willingness to care. The realization hits her harder than rejection ever could, because rejection can be argued with, but indifference cannot. You've taken away her stage, her audience, her script. Now she's performing to silence, and silence doesn't applaud. As you remain calm, something paradoxical begins to happen. Your absence starts to pull her closer, not through effort but through energy. She feels drawn back to the very stillness she once took for granted. That's the nature of polarity. The storm always returns to the calm. And as she feels that pull, her edges soften. The pride fades, the arrogance melts, and the mask begins to slip. What once felt like dominance now feels like distance, and the distance feels unbearable. But here's the truth. You don't need her return to validate your peace. You've already found it within yourself. You've already become whole. The victory isn't in having her back. It's in realizing you no longer need her to feel powerful. You've broken the cycle. You've ended the pattern. She's no longer the center of your universe. You are. And that's when she finally understands that your silence wasn't rejection. It was transformation. It was the rebirth of the man she could never control. When she finally realizes she can't control you anymore, something inside her breaks quietly. It's not a dramatic collapse. It's subtle, invisible, like a candle burning out in a room where no one's watching. The power she once held over you dissolves, not because of confrontation, but because you've transcended it. You've stopped responding to manipulation, you've stopped seeking validation, and you've stopped playing her emotional games. The leash she once held so confidently has fallen from her hand, and for the first time she feels the weight of what she's lost. Not a man, but her control. In the beginning, she'll resist that truth. She'll try to pull you back in, not out of love, but out of desperation to restore her sense of importance. You'll notice her attempts, subtle messages, sudden nostalgia, or a quiet appearance after weeks of silence. But it's not affection that drives her. It's fear. The ego cannot stand to be forgotten. To her, your indifference feels like erasure. The power she once drew from your attention is gone, and that absence is unbearable. She wants to feel significant again, but your stillness has stripped that illusion away. You, however, have changed. The man who once reacted, who once explained, defended, and pleaded, no longer exists. You've become stoic, not in coldness but in mastery. You've learned that peace is not found in control, but in detachment. You've learned that true strength doesn't need to prove itself. You've learned that the greatest form of power is emotional independence. When you stop chasing what disturbs your peace, you begin to attract what aligns with your purpose. That's the discipline she never expected you to develop. She'll try to test your boundaries again, just to see if the old version of you still exists somewhere beneath your calm. But you won't react. You'll observe without absorbing. You'll listen without engaging. You'll recognize her attempts for what they are. Echoes of a past where you once gave too much. This time your silence isn't an act, it's your nature. You no longer seek closure because you've already found it within yourself. You've realized that no one can truly take from you what you refuse to give away. Your focus, your peace, your emotional balance, and that's what shatters her illusion completely. When she looks at you now, she sees something she can't manipulate. A man who belongs to himself. A man who doesn't need validation to feel worthy. A man who can walk away and still feel whole. That's the kind of strength that silences everything. The arguments, the games, the emotional traps. It's the kind of strength that commands respect without demanding it. In the end, she's left with the truth she never wanted to face. The control was never real. It only existed as long as you allowed it. The moment you decided to master yourself, she lost her power over you forever. And while she may never admit it, a part of her will always remember the day she realized she couldn't control you anymore. Not as a loss, but as the moment she finally saw what real strength looks like.